Picture this. It's a warm, sunny day in 5th century BCE Greece. Olive trees sway gently in the breeze. Marble statues gleam in the sunlight. And somewhere, Socrates is probably pestering someone about the meaning of life. Welcome to ancient Greece, the birthplace of democracy, philosophy, and, hilariously enough, some of the most unintentionally comedic moments in history. Let's start with Sparta, the city-state that basically turned the art of tough love into a national identity. Spartans believed in raising warriors, and their training started young, like kindergarten boot camp young. At 7, Spartan boys were sent to the agoge, which was less school and more survival reality TV. They were taught to fight, steal, endure pain, and get really comfortable with hunger. In fact, stealing food wasn't just allowed, it was encouraged. But if you got caught, that was a paddling, or worse, a stern lecture about being bad at stealing, which was apparently the bigger offense. Oh, and don't think the Spartan girls got off easy. Unlike their counterparts in other Greek city-states, Spartan women were trained in wrestling and athletics to ensure they raised strong children. Romantic, right? Forget flowers or poetry. Spartan courtship ceremonies sometimes involved women beating up prospective husbands. Move over, dating apps. This was a match made in headlocks. But enough about Sparta. Let's venture into Athens, the intellectual capital of ancient Greece, where democracy was born, and yet looked hilariously different than what we think of today. First of all, Athens was the OG in using random lottery systems for choosing public officials. Yes, your city's government was essentially run by the ancient equivalent of Powerball. Imagine going to vote and finding out you didn't win a trip to the Bahamas, but instead a year overseeing roads and sewage management. And the Athenians weren't shy about using creative punishments for their politicians. If a leader upset too many people, instead of voting them out, Athenians could ostracize them by literally writing their name on pottery shards. If enough people agreed, the politician was sent packing for 10 years. Talk about passive-aggressive democracy. Now, let's talk about philosophy, the field that ancient Greece practically trademarked. Philosophers like Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle shaped Western thought. But let's be honest, they were also kind of weird. Socrates, for instance, wasn't a fan of writing anything down. Instead, he wandered around asking awkward questions and annoying people until they either had a revelation or walked away in frustration. He was the original guy at the coffee shop who insists he's too deep for Wi-Fi. Plato, Socrates' star pupil, decided one day that what society really needed wasn't democracy or monarchy. It was philosopher kings. You know, a government run by people who sat around contemplating shadows in a cave and wondering if reality even existed. To top it off, Plato also theorized some hilariously impractical ideas, like banning poets. Why? Because poetry, he claimed, was too emotional. Who knew Plato was ancient Greece's first poetry critic? And don't forget Aristotle, the guy who wrote books about everything from ethics to biology. He was brilliant, sure, but also hilariously wrong about some things. For instance, Aristotle believed that men had more teeth than women. Spoiler alert, they don't. Someone probably could have handed him a mirror and saved him the embarrassment. But we're just scratching the surface of Greece's humor-filled history. Take their fashion choices. Imagine strutting through Athens wearing a chiton, a big rectangle of fabric pinned with brooches, paired with sandals that were notoriously uncomfortable. And don't forget to oil your skin with olive oil for that Grecian glow, despite the fact that every insect in a 2-mile radius would probably mistake you for a snack. And boy, did the Greeks know how to throw a party. Festivals were practically a sport, and none was more over-the-top than the Dionysia, a multi-day extravaganza celebrating Dionysus, the god of wine, theater, and a good time. Crowds would gather to watch plays, tragedies, and comedies that ranged from thought-provoking masterpieces to slapstick routines with fart jokes. And these performances weren't just on stage. Some actors took audience participation to the next level, running into the crowd and dragging hapless festival-goers into the chaos. Of course, ancient Greece wouldn't be complete without its competitive spirit. The Olympic Games were born here, and they were every bit as ridiculous as they were impressive. Sure, athletes competed in iconic events like wrestling and chariot racing, but there was also pankration, a no-holds-barred fight that basically allowed anything short of biting your opponent or poking them in the eye. It was less sportsmanship and more ancient MMA. The Olympics also had their share of quirks. For starters, athletes competed in the nude. That's right. Birthday suits were the ultimate athletic gear. Apparently, clothing was considered a hindrance, and being oiled up with olive oil made you more aerodynamic. Whether that actually helped or just made slipping on the dirt easier, we'll never know. And ancient Greece's sense of humor extended into medicine. Ever wonder what Greek doctors prescribed for illness? How about pigeon poop mixed with honey? Or boiled sheep's brain applied directly to the forehead for headaches? Let's just say their approach wasn't winning any awards for bedside manner. Even their mythology was full of absurd moments. Zeus, the king of the gods, wasn't exactly a role model. His hobbies included throwing lightning bolts and transforming into animals to, pursue romantic interests. One such escapade involved him turning into a bull to woo Europa. You can't make this stuff up. Then there's the Trojan War. Ever heard the phrase, "beware of Greeks bearing gifts"? Well, the Greeks came up with this hilarious gem during their siege of Troy. They couldn't break in through the walls, so they built a giant wooden horse, filled it with soldiers, and just left it outside the city gates. And the Trojans? They pulled the horse inside like it was the ultimate door prize. Imagine the look on their faces when the Greeks climbed out in the middle of the night. In the end, ancient Greece was a land of contradictions. A place where geniuses debated the mysteries of existence one moment and staged slapstick theater the next. So, as you marvel at Greece's contributions to democracy, art, and philosophy, don't forget to chuckle at their eccentricities. After all, we're talking about the civilization that made nudity an Olympic standard, weaponized pottery shards for political drama, and invented a god whose main job description was party enthusiast. Ancient Greece, the ultimate blend of brilliance and absurdity. Next chapter, Rome, when sandals ruled the world.